let's get started. So the idea is to take a gander at the new coming version of Phoenix, which is currently in RC, which means release candidate 0, which I guess is the first one. And it should have some nice updates. So there's new authentication and mailer generators. I don't think we'll spend a lot of time with those. Maybe we'll run genauth just to get it in there. And then there's LiveView with the Heex engine, which also leads to some changes in how components work, which is interesting. Hey, McBull, welcome. And yeah, we'll cover these, try to cover a few other things. Hey, Marcel, happy you could make it. So yeah, we'll look at the Heex stuff, and I like what I've heard of the Heex stuff. It seems like it will be a significant improvement. I'll think we'll talk further about what that is when we get there. And then there's some new LiveView server lifecycle hooks. Not sure what those are about. Haven't dug into those. They've improved LiveView live session. That's interesting. I thought that worked like that from way back, but yeah, it's a good improvement. It doesn't need to build and replace the LiveView and do HTTP when redirecting. Blog post out already? Oh yeah, so this is the blog post for the RC, so it's not gold yet. It's not released proper. Node and Webpack free asset building with ESBuild. That's one of the big ones. So yeah, so this is definitely the RC, Marcel. It's not the final. But yeah, there's a ton of interesting stuff. They actually go through this work a lot in the Thinking Elixir podcast, where they have Chris McCord on to talk about his new job. I thought it was a good and informative podcast episode. But of course, you should be listening to Beam Radio instead. We don't interview Chris McCord about this stuff, but you know, it's the podcast I'm on. So we installed the RC archive. Yeah. I'm sure that's fine. And Mix Phoenix new -- live. And what do we want to call this project? Call it comp, because we're going to be looking at components a bunch, I think. Yeah. I'll do nicely. Fetch and install dependencies. So soon we would hit the npm step, and I don't think we will this time. So now it's compiling. Yeah, there's a step-by-step upgrade guide. That's probably good. I have a bunch of LiveView that I would probably want to port at some point to this, because it does deprecate LEEX and EEX. Well, yeah, there was no npm install step. Nothing. All right, I can live with that. Actually, let's tmux this, because I think we'll be referencing the docs a fair bit. No, not that. There we go. So let's IEX-S mix Phoenix server, start this thing. Yeah, okay, we don't have Postgres. Classic. Don't need Postgres. Don't think we're gonna run it. So this is how you disable the database, folks. Just comment out the repo and no connection will be made. Peace of mind from prototype to production. I hope I got myself a live view because I asked for a live view. Live.html.lex, but did I not get the good old page live? Surprised. Did I do something wrong when setting up this one? It's one question to ask myself. Well, no, it did explicitly add live view, so I guess typically when I generate a project like this, I do get a boilerplate live view. Let's take a look. I did not get one, which is surprising. I'm gonna start this process over and just see that I make sure I did it the right way. Because I'm curious if they drop that, it's not a big deal, honestly. But it's also gonna be a little bit of a pain. Dash live. Include the Phoenix LiveView to make it easier than ever to build interactive real-time applications. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm planning on doing, Marcel. Oh. Does that matter? I don't know if it does. Did I get page live this time? See page view. Seems like it might not be generating that anymore. Huh. Because they had this nice example with Phoenix Gen HTML, Phoenix Gen Live. I guess we could use Phoenix Gen Live just to get it done. I think I got the same thing this time, right? Yeah, there's no difference. I mean, it's not that much work. It's just I've become very used to setting up a LiveView project in that way. Okay, I've never used the Gen Live generator. Let's see what that gives me. A context module for the accounts, API, SKI, main, blah, 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 blah. This is more than I need. Yeah. So let's just set up a live view on our own, shall we? I will reconstruct you page live. Care about that. I think it's index, right? Actually, I can just reference that one. It's the typical one I use for this. Yeah, there's a live layout, so it's definitely prepped for LiveView. It just doesn't have this file, for example. Which I mean that's fine. For some, that's probably just generated cruft. I almost always start my implementation inside of that. It's critical infrastructure that I lost. No, not view/live, just live. There we go. Oh, right. Yeah. There we go. And page live.ex. And then we're gonna need a Heex file, I guess. So rather than that, page live.html.heex. Fancy. Now let's set this up. Comp web.pagelive. Boilerplating a LiveView. Which, to be quite honest, there's not a lot of boilerplate to it. Yeah, this one uses a few things that aren't necessary. Not expecting to do anything with the session. And press button, rams, socket, just implement this. That's LiveView. Will it blend? Yeah, so it does render. And now we should be able to look at the new Heex. Heex. So now if only I remembered how to actually resize my... that's the way. Thank you. I use Tmux so unevenly that I never quite remember the commands, but apparently I remembered enough. So I want an H1 foo. I think they actually have to have a wrappy thing. That's pretty common with component D formats. So the good part about Heex, the interesting part about Heex, is that it should prevent you from screwing up too bad. And I'm not super strict on, or I'm not super keen on strictness as a value in itself. But I've forgotten so many end form tags and end divs. And while building components in HTML, this is helpful. Unmatched closing tag, expected NP for P at line 3. Yeah. That's enormously helpful. So originally EX is a templating language. It is not, oh yeah, that. It is not an HTML specific templating language. Even the live EX is not. It doesn't know the structure of what it's rendering, so it can't actually check the structure of what it's rendering. This can. So that gives us these neat properties. And okay, so let's assign let's call it value init, whatever. Guess that. And then we could do, so this looks very much like old school just LEX. But if I add Phoenix click, press button, value, let's do system.unique integer. Don't know if Phoenix click actually works in a p tag. Let's just make it a button. All right, so that's nice, that works. We can still use assigns in the bodies, but if we wanted to sort of do this, so we wanted to make a really big age tag, I guess. I think that's a compiler, yeah. No function clause matching, tokenizer handle tag name. So this would be breaking the structure. So interpolating HTML tags and attributes. Defining attributes. Since Heex must parse and validate the HTML structure, code interpolation using are restricted to the body, inner content of the HTML component nodes, and it cannot be applied within tags. For instance, the following syntax is invalid. Instead, do, so let's see. If we have a style we want to add, so border 2 pixel solid blue. And that's something we want to be able to apply here. That would be, that would no longer be that, that would be this. Yeah, made the outline uglier. For multiple dynamic attributes, you can use the same notation but without assigning the expression to any specific attribute. Expressions inside must be either a keyword list or a map containing the key value pairs. So this would be, let's see, come on. So if I want to do attrs and just go like this and ID foo class bar and value as to be traditional, and we assign this to input attrs. We add ourselves an input. Actually, so this, I would probably want to add a type. That's not strictly necessary, I don't think. But because it defaults to a text. But yeah, and let's inspect it. So it started with the value baz because that was what we said, and class, bar, ID, foo. That's neat. This is actually going to be much easier to work with in many ways. Just so much more convenience when you're manipulating values on the server side. Function components. So function components are stateless components implemented as pure functions with the help of the Heex component module. They can be either the local, same module, or remote external module. Heex allows invoking those function components directly in the template using HTML-like notation, for example, a remote function. Or a local function can be invoked with a leading dot. Okay, so let's create one of these. Def module comp web dot. So anyone have thoughts on what component we want to make? I think we need some kind of button. So let's do this and then use phoenix.component. So typically this would be done in another file, but this is more straightforward if I do it this way. We can do comp web buttons and then button. You think we should do weather? Sure, we can do weather. It takes a set of assigns. And this, I think, is... So this is the sigil for Heex. The weather is... assigns... oh wait, at, and let's see. Let's just call it weather. So if we wanted to invoke this, we would do comp web buttons dot. It's not a button though, so let's call it a weather. Best components. That's this module, and this is weather, and this is comp web best components dot weather. And then we can pass assigns by doing like weather hot. And that should do it. The weather's hot. So Heex allows invoking those function components. Function components are stateless components implemented as pure functions with the help. Like, so I couldn't build one of these functions in the LiveView necessarily, is that it? Or do I really need the Heex component thing? Could I do essentially could I do that? And then .weather for a local one. Yeah, okay. This, I think, could be nice because it allows compartmentalizing a bunch of small pieces of markup. You can learn more about components in Phoenix Component. So function components are stateless. I wonder if they're still... I'm curious about whether and how stateful components are done, and if there's such a thing. I've mostly used LiveView as with stateless components because that sort of suits my way of thinking about it. That's the one I want. Oh yeah, I think this would be Phoenix LiveView Heex. Hey Pajo. Yeah, so anytime I live stream, I typically just let the video sit there on YouTube, so it should be available to review later if you have a hankering to do so. There we go, Phoenix component. Oh, so maybe the distinction is Phoenix component and Phoenix live component, or live component is the old one. For API for function components. Oh, these are probably the kind of components that you can use in an old proper dead view as well. So normal controller workflow, which would still be nice. So Heex is intended to be used for those as well, but it sort of requires LiveView. Oh, it's not necessary to use Phoenix component side Phoenix LiveView. No, that makes sense. You can assign to the assigns. It's very nice. It's also possible to give HTML blocks to function components as in regular HTML tags. For example, you could create a button component that looks like this. Render block, inner block. Oh. Let's make one of those. Def code. Signs do and then we do tilde h and maybe we want pre-tags to wrap because we're gonna do code highlighting. Yeah. And then equal render block at inner block. Hey Alan, it's going well. I think we're doing good. I mean, in the end, you guys have to tell me about that. But let's say we want a bit of a preamble on this one, so call it an H4 and We just want to type it out like file name, add file name. So this would be typically something I would use for on my website to create some code or create a code block. And then I could do this and do file name equals foo.exs. And I could do an end block. And then I could go def module foo do and def myfun do and io.puts foo. And with a little bit of luck, yeah, so that creates a pre-block and sets a header for it. So being able to make blocks like that, pretty nice. I like it. It's probably been somewhat of a thing in some other capacity. I'm not familiar with render block necessarily from before. I haven't done that much UI in classical Phoenix fashion, I guess. Let's see, anything else? You can even have the component give a value back to the caller by using let. Oh, that's neat. So if you're building some kind of list or set of items like that, you can have that be reassigned. So every time you render the block, you also pass it the item. That's actually pretty neat. The unordered list is not the most powerful variant of this, I could imagine, but yeah, so if you have specifics that you need to put in, or you want to sort of vary what you have in that inside that block, yeah, I can see that this could be powerful. I imagine you could also throw in a component here. So you could say, oh, I want a post list, and then I want a post item of every entry in that list. Yeah. I need sleep, no worries. So these components, I like them. It feels smart to me, reasonable. So live components, those are supposed to also be able to hold state. The simplest component only defines a render function. So are they still the same old sort of? Or is there a way to reference those in the new way? Or do you have to embed them with by calling live component? Or could you just use the component's name? I don't know if it's just that the docs aren't updated, or if that's an actual limitation. All right, that's fair enough. So yeah, I think this will be super nice. I really like what they're doing with this. seems like you could write fairly terse and like small function, pure function style components, and have a bunch of small ones or some larger ones, or like group it however you like. But then there's also the option of building out sort of modules of components and having them nest in that way. Okay, Marcel has a question, or I'm not sure if it's a question, more like a comment. Here's what I haven't figured out yet. The equivalent of children in React. I could then use it to abstract away simple UI components like cards and stuff. So I think Service has the concept of slots, which Heex has on its roadmap as well. Yeah, so slots. So I don't know React that much. I don't know much of anything about React. I've poked at it a few times. But the concept of children. React children. I wonder what I'll get here. React top level API. Children. React Children provides utilities for dealing with the this.props.children opaque data structure, invokes function of every immediate child contained within children with this set to this arg. So what is it that you feel like you couldn't do with these blocks and just nesting components? Because I'm not sure I'm following, but I haven't fought that problem space much recently. Like one component nesting my other component, one component. Oh, I think you can do that. So let's try that, shall we? Because with this inner block, render block thing, if this is great, having a little bit of a discussion, dealing with trying to figure out what we can do. I like it. So if I, let's say, want to put a p tag with just the word foo here, and I want to put a weather tag here, would you say that if this works, that would be somewhat akin to what you want to do? So this is a component in a component. Inner block, inner block. Yeah, so I think that's the... Yeah. But this syntax of being able to run, of being able to set them up like pieces of HTML, that's entirely new, yeah? I think so. All right. I think we've run through most of what sort of Heex is. It's not that big of a sort of API surface. It's not that much to learn. Overall, I think it will make it easier for people, not harder. Maybe some work to sort of adapt to the new thing, as always. But yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Something I'm curious about is this. So typically, the watchers. Let's look at the old watchers and compare. I don't think I've customized the watchers here. Maybe a little bit for Webpack. So this is a pedal stack app. So watchers, node, runs Webpack, mode development, watch standard and da 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 da. Yeah, Marcel is saying, can now abstract away all the repetitive Tailwind stuff. Yeah, so part of the power, I feel like, of Tailwind is that everything's explicit and in the place where you typed it, but there's a certain point where nesting and dividing makes it much more easy to work with. And yeah, I think this will be helpful, the changes to the components. I didn't dig deep in components before, so I might be missing some of it just repeats, but okay, watchers. Start the ESBuild watcher by calling ESBuild install and run default args. All right. So that's the new assets thing. Let's kill the server, take a look. They vendored a top bar thing. Oh, I could explore this in nerd tree as well, I guess. Let's start it up again. Import. A few imports. Hasn't changed much. Phoenix.css is packed in here. All right. Phoenix 1.6 Tailwind. I know people have started poking at this. So Sergio going hard, setting this up the moment things drop, I guess. Yeah, so still installing via npm. So I think you don't really get away from that. Marcel says, exactly, I have a dashboard with 7 card components done in Tailwind. Now I want to change the design a tiny bit. I mean, you could always have had those in the non-smart components in LiveView, and those would, that sort of lets you abstract away the common things about cards, for example. But I guess this will make it neater in many ways. Yeah, so that says auto prefix post CSS, import post CSS, CLI, Tailwind CSS, and save dev. So I'm not sure how much you actually need to do of that. Because I know Jose Valim, Twitter, Adam, Radan, they had a conversation about this. Let's see. I saw it. I know it was a thing. I think there are probably, yeah, there to clarify. This only matters when running Tailwind by CLI. So this is how you keep up with development. You do it in Twitter. The Tailwind CLI tool is actually quite a bit more efficient. So Yeah, so this is a Phoenix ES build demo. So would this just be doing... Oh, I guess that was still in a pull request, right? Yeah. So let's try this. So these, yeah, Phoenix CSS. Who needs it? Swearing at key commands. Cool. I don't really care about Alpine for this case right now. Scripts. These are the configs. All right, how much stuff do I actually need here? On setup, come on, cd assets npm install. A little bit curious because he did mention in the discussion, I was able to update it to use npx tailwind css. Base component utilities. Yeah, so still a little bit involved to bring in this stuff. Let's see. Do that and that. Yeah, that will fail for now. So go into assets, npm install, save dev, I think. Auto prefixer, post CSS, import tailwind CSS. Then we create a post CSS config.js. Then we create a tailwind.config.js. No, not SJ. And then our config dev. Let's see, the watchers, that's where I want to go. So we have the ES build one. Is that changed in any way? Yeah, there's a comma on the end. Sweet. Actually, Marcel, I should have you on to just give a tour of your application if you don't mind showing some of the behind the scenes on that one. just because it's a fairly significant application built on a lot of LiveView and a lot of Tailwind apparently. So let's see, how are we doing here? Rebuilding. All right, so let's see if this actually works. So let's go to our page live, and I guess we could just modify one of our nice components. Class equals bg gray 500. Could not compile application comp. Okay, I seem to have Tailwind CSS because otherwise that wouldn't work. And let's pad it, and let's border rounded MD. I haven't written Tailwind in a little bit now. Remind me when you're back, Marcel, and we can revisit that. Font bold. Yeah. This is so convenient. That was not a lot of setup to get Tailwind working. It's been much worse earlier on. I mean, it still requires an npm install step, I guess. So, because ESBuild doesn't have a way to install things from npm, right? ESBuild install packages. No, it doesn't. Doesn't seem like it. It sort of relies on still relies on Node and npm, which is all right. I don't mind. But as little as possible. And like Webpack, super powerful. I don't use half of it, and I'm so glad if I don't have to try to understand what nuances of that file I'm working with. All right. There's probably some additional things I should find out as I want to build a production version to ship of this. Let's see the weather one here. We do div, and BG blue 300, pad 4, rounded MD, 2 pieces of margin, text white, font bold, text center. Now I'm repeating myself. Let's match up the rough values. Aw, those match. Essentially that Makbul Webpack is horrible is maybe a bit harsh, but it can be rough to work with. I haven't enjoyed it. There might be people out there to whom it makes perfect sense, but I don't spend a lot of time with modern JavaScript, so to me it's the last thing I want to be concerned about, and I've had a fair bit of trouble with it, unfortunately. Okay, so yeah, we've taken a look at some of the new LiveView changes, and I must say I like them. What I particularly like is this attribute stuff. I mean, this is interesting for in a few different ways. So I could be writing writing my tailwind straight in the live view. That's not optimal typically. But yeah, there's that. And so I wonder though, if I do class foo like PG gray 700, what happens then? Because did I set a value for class when I set this up? I did, but it's being overwritten, which is fine. Removing that entirely. But this means that you can have some dynamic and some sort of manual or some others. Ease. Just want to see if the dynamic one wins. No, I think the static ones always win. Yeah, okay. Like, I'm looking forward to this release. Was there anything else we should be taking a look at? I didn't think so. LiveView server lifecycle hook. So on mount and attach hooks, which provide a mechanism to tap into key stages of the LiveView lifecycle. Intercept events, patches, and regular messages when necessary, and to inject common functionality. So hooks are the JavaScript style hooks, right? On the JavaScript side. Not entirely following what this exactly provides, but it does sound like it might help with some sort of integration challenges that I think Alpine has had. We could add Alpine too. That wasn't that much extra. Well, we'll start here. So yeah, this uses npx to run Tailwind CSS, I guess. Well, that works. That's much better. That's not where I'm going. All right. Yeah, and they extracted Phoenix view, which I don't particularly care about. But it's probably fine. All right. No, I think that's essentially it. Not doing anything super exciting with it right now because we don't have the time to expand on that too much. So for me, this is how nesting a list of components looked earlier. And I guess I could change this a fair bit. I would essentially just need this. Oh yeah, Marcel is commenting that he will be looking at those hooks because he is currently sending custom events for rendering charts and things. Actually, Marcel, have you looked at any of the charting libraries that would work with LiveView? Oh, what was that one called? Actually, I should see if I can pull it up. I have it on one of my lists of things I should screw around with, I think. No, like charts.js. No, I was thinking, yeah. Oh yeah, you've tried the Elixir based charting libraries. Yeah, Sophie has definitely spoken about those. Context. So these seem neat. Yeah. So I can imagine that there are much more featureful libraries out there that you might be wanting to use instead, and I totally get it. But yeah, I like these. They are interesting. Also, I guess there's the work with LiveBook, which also has. So that's the Vegalite, I guess. Vegalite and Kino and composing interactive graphics, a high-level grammar. Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember what's necessary for these and how complex they can be. But yeah, if you have something working, I don't think you want to change your charting library right away. No, but I think that's a good place to wrap up. So thanks for watching, and let me know if there's anything particular you'd like me to do a stream on. This was fun. So take care. Have a good weekend. All right. Bye-bye.